All of us photographers love the idea of shooting film. There's something about the difference in how you work, the way the photographs look. There's one thing that all of us don't like though, and that is how much time and cost goes into shooting film photography. Today I'm going to talk to you about a product that can help make your digital photographs look a little bit more like a film photograph, and it actually probably will save you a ton of money. So the software I'm going to talk about today is called Dehancer, and it's a plugin for various video and photo softwares, including DaVinci Resolve and Premiere on the video side, and then Lightroom, Photoshop, and Capture One on the photo side. In addition to those two worlds, if you like what you're seeing today and aren't a big, photo video person, you can actually do all this stuff on your iPad or iPhone, because they have an iOS version of this app too, and it works very similarly, and it's actually kind of really impressive. Before we get started, full disclosure, Dehancer reached out to me to check out their software. It's something that I've played with for a while between VSCO and some other film profile software, so I've actually been using these film emulation type tools for years, so I was immediately interested. But my one friend Zach actually uses this software on his color grading for commercial clients inside of DaVinci Resolve. So I was actually pretty intrigued immediately because I asked Zach, hey, have you ever heard of Dehancer? And he was like, oh yeah, I love it. Their noise emulation and all this stuff is incredible. So I was pretty excited to get the software and check it out. But they did reach out to me to check it out. So take that with a grain of salt. I'm allowed to say whatever I want, and I am saying whatever I want. Dehancer has given me an affiliate code. I'm going to put that link down below. If you want to get a small discount and give me a little bit of a thank you for showing you the software, you can check it out and that'd be pretty helpful. It's actually the first time I've said yes to doing this because I like the software so much, which is pretty cool. So today I'm going to show you how it works on Lightroom. That's the primary photo editing software I use day to day. So let's hop in and take a look. I'm going to open this photograph here, and I have already kind of cropped it, checked my exposure, my white balance. Dehancer has a guide on how they want you to tone and change everything. I have personally just been kind of getting it to where I would want it, and then right click, edit in, and I click over to Dehancer. So if you just right click on the photograph, edit in, and Dehancer. This is obviously once you have the software installed. They say to work in sRGB. This kind of default TIFF sRGB 16-bit is going to work great, and it's going to be a copy. So your original raw file will stay in place and intact. So it'll pop up this window here, and we can make this a little bit bigger so we can see more of this. But basically it's going to pop up this window. You got a histogram down here. You have all your tools on the right, just like you would kind of expect in like a program like Lightroom. So one thing to note, these presets include a last edits. This has always been wrong for me. And if you're with the Dehancer team, I'd love to have this actually reflect my last edits, because I often want to go through a couple photos in a row and I have to redo everything each time. So I'm going to go over to Profiles, and this is going to show us this whole drop down of all these different films we can choose. Now over here in film types, you can kind of cut down. This is everything, but you could go down and pick, something more specific. Today, let's check out maybe color negative. There's a lot of common brands you might expect to see. Some popular ones would be like Kodak Portra, CineStill 800T is very popular, and even some older ones are in here like Ultramax. I don't think that is made anymore. But let's try out Portra 160. So quickly we can disable this preview to kind of see the before and after. Immediately the tonality of the image changes, the colors are changing. I will say Dehancer has a wonderful guide, and they go way more in depth in their PDF than I ever could. So if you really want to know what a specific tool does, go to Dehancer's website, check out their PDF guide, and they have all kinds of information on what each one of these tools does. I'm going to show you a brief overview of what I use and kind of what I've been playing with and what I really like about the software. So here we have like exposure compensation, things like this in the top right. I do all of this in Lightroom, or try to. Now, of course, if you get it in here and a film shifts something, that might be a good idea. But one thing you might immediately notice is over on the left, there's a push-pull, which also indicates like an exposure change. This is actually how the film is like how the film affects the photo. And as you'll notice, the histogram doesn't move too much because it's actually just going in like a push and pull with that film profile. If at any time you want to reset a slider, just double click that little dot. Film compression and film developer are newer things that I haven't played with too much, but basically this is kind of for helping you control your dynamic range. If you look at the clouds in this photograph, you can see that they kind of hold a little more gray, a little more detail. This photograph's pretty neutral, so I don't want to use that. Print. This is kind of like to simulate what kind of paper you would be printing the photograph out on. So that could be like a film stock, or like a filmmaking print film, or it could be like linear, which I think is just kind of skipping this step to some degree. Or you go to Cineon Film Log, which would be like for then putting it into like a video editing software color grading suite, from my understanding. I've really liked the Endura glossy paper. The next big thing is film grain. If you turn it off and on, you can probably see, but if not, we can zoom in here and you can see it off and then on. It is a huge effect. There's kind of like these two different ways of working. I've found that the positive is also often a lot more subtle versus the negative film grain. And there's also a analog versus digital. This is again in their very elaborate guide what the difference is, but I believe analog is actual grain from film that they scanned. I've almost always pulled this amount down a little bit to about half. So today I'm going to use 10 on this photograph. That's a lot of grain still. So a big thing when you download like a Lightroom preset that includes like a film profile, one thing they won't do is add halation or bloom. Halation is like that red fringing around bright objects, most notably like lights or windows or something like that. And bloom is kind of like what it sounds like, but it's kind of that glowy softening in high contrast areas that's common with old films. You can turn them both on, and I suggest using them together. Immediately, you probably could tell maybe a little difference, but if you look right in here where this contrasty area is, you'll see a little bit of red fringing right here, so you can see it, and right across there. And then look at these great spots on the edge of that car or the roof of the car. And if I turn it up a lot, you can kind of exaggerate it here. You can really see what I'm talking about here with those areas. And this is something that is so cool about Dehancer. It is so neat because it is really like the biggest thing about Dehancer that makes things look like film. I'm clicking on this box up here called mask mode, and when you do that, it shows you just where this halation's coming in. Local diffusions kind of felt like an intensity slider to me. Global diffusion is then kind of like your level once it's set. Like this sets how much it feels like, and then global diffusion says like, okay, now let's turn the volume up on where you told me to put the halation. This is probably going to be way too much, just to be honest. So we can turn off our mask mode and see. Like this is looking like a like a point and shoot camera or something. So we can go down here to the impact, and we can just drop the impact. Let's cut it in half to 40. And again, we can turn this off and on, and that's pretty satisfying to me. Maybe for YouTube, so you guys can see it a little better, we'll put it up at 50. Now, like I said, I like to use halation and bloom together. Bloom, I think, adds that glowiness to an area. So if we turn this off and turn it on, it's pretty subtle, but the two combined seem to produce a more realistic effect. Again, I usually kind of take these down from the default, kind of get it in there. This probably looks pretty similar when we back out, but then when we turn it off and show the before, it's a pretty huge difference. So we can go in here and now back in Lightroom. So this should stack them. However, I'm in a quick collection, so it is not stacking them, but normally if you were in your library, it would stack these up. So we can look at our before and our after, and what a difference it makes. It just does give you that film tone, in my opinion. I'm going to show you a couple more examples. This is from a recent shoot I did where I was directing. This is my friend Kyle, and so this is a photo I took on set. And if we look, we have a lot of high contrast areas between this window and the side of his face. And if we go into the next photograph, and we see what I did in Dehancer, we can really see how this changes quite a bit. Sorry, these are a little bit misaligned. The glow and the redness of that halation is really pretty amazing. If we look at his forearms here, you know, look at the difference, how the highlights are a little more muted. You know, it's not the same as film. Like in film, maybe this would hold a little more detail, but in general, like this area, you know, just loses that crispness and that harshness that the Dehancer version does. Now these windows are one of those areas where that film compensation and things, this is an area that, you know, would kind of control that a little bit more. Another one, this was one of the lighting team, and again, you know, him lit up on top of this desk. He was kind of standing in checking some lights, and we go in and this is a bit more subtle, so we see the saturation and color shifts. And again, we go in a little closer and we can see, you know, that halation around the ears, around this bulb a little bit, and you know, that film grain is really satisfying. One last one from the other day. This is my buddy Zach, and this was photograph. We lit this area, so this is all fake lighting. This is a fake window light and everything that our lighting team put up. And again, just put in that film profile, and we see a little bit of that halation around these edges, across these slats, or right here where this edge of the beam is, and then again, kind of right on his fingers and the edge of his shirt, and the window. You know, you can see it right here in this window area, how much of a difference that is. We'll do one more photograph, and like I said before, you know, here's our last edits, and it says that I use this ADOX whatever, which I did not. Let's try motion picture film, maybe the Kodak Vision 3. Now, one thing, I like to zoom way in to kind of see some of this stuff. I'm on a MacBook right now, but it's still a little bit hard to see. So let's go this Vision 3. I'm gonna take this film grain. Let's change the print over to 2383 film. It's a very popular film stock. Film grain, I think I'm gonna put the size a little smaller, maybe 0.5. We're gonna go and enable bloom, so you guys should be able to see how this kind of glows up those contrast areas. We're gonna take this down to 40, and let's go and add that halation, and oh, that's so awesome to see like where the trees and everything. And if we go to mask mode, we can see there's a lot here. So maybe we bring this down a little bit because we got a lot of subtle details. And we come back. And again, you know, if we go from the previous to the finished file, let's go check this out in Lightroom. So this is our after, and this is our original. What a difference. This photograph, when I was playing with them on this trip I took, really looked like film to me. This was really satisfying. So there's some of the great things about Dehancer. I do have a few things that I wish were better or changed, or just things that maybe can't be fixed. Number one being that I can't batch edit photographs, meaning that normally I can grab a group of photographs and I can adjust one of those photographs, and those adjustments will carry over to that whole set. Think of like a portrait or a series of landscapes or anything like that, where you want a very similar set of adjustments to a group of photographs. That's normally something that's very easy to do, but with Dehancer, you kind of got to do everything one photo at a time. It's not a big deal. I kind of see Dehancer as a tool I use seldomly, or on certain photographs I take, you know, kind of like the winner of the day, or you know, okay, this is a final one, you know, so you're going to take a little more care to it. But it still does kind of slow you down when, like, for instance, on that shoot, I had a bunch of photographs that were all pretty similar behind the scenes photos, and I was like, oh, it'd be cool to just have them all look the same. And I ended up kind of skipping Dehancer on that because it would have taken me more time than it was really worth. Another obvious flaw or problem with this software, and any software that's a plugin, is every time you make a photo into an editable TIFF from a raw photograph or anything else, you are obviously going to use more disk space up, meaning that my original raw file will continue to exist, and then I make a copy and I edit this TIFF file inside of Dehancer. On my check, they are similar in size in this particular camera's instance, the Leica M10. So that went from a 25 megabytes for a photograph to now, with the second copy, I'm up to a total of 50 megabytes. This is something that is kind of annoying to have 2 copies of photographs, and you can stack them in Lightroom. There's lots of things, and there's a lot of efficiencies inside of Lightroom to take care of that and other softwares. But it is something to note that you're going to burn up a lot of hard drive space if you're dehancing, say a majority of your photographs over and over. Now, one thing that's kind of cool, like I said earlier, is this iPad and iOS version. So since we're editing finished image files, meaning JPEGs or TIFFs anyways out of Lightroom, the iOS or iPad OS version of this app might actually be pretty intriguing, because you basically could do most of the stuff this version could do on your iPad or iPhone and do it remotely. So if you work in PR or marketing, or trying to make quick edits, maybe that's a really great option. You zip some JPEGs over to your phone, you can throw them through Dehancer and spit them out and post them on your Instagram or whatever right away. Thanks so much for watching. If you're not already subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. And if you want to, you can follow me over on Instagram, Brett in Real Life. And if you know how to fix that last edits button not working in the plugin, please leave that in the comments below, because that has been driving me nuts about this software the whole time I've used it.